In this episode, we will explore some questions discussed on our C4A Academy community Facebook group. It's not my child? My child can read? My child can type. Why start on 3 stencils? And what can I expect? You are in for a wide-ranging discussion.
Hi, this video is going to be questions that we have gotten on our C4A Academy community Facebook group. So we're really happy to try to demonstrate some of the answers that Judy has already posted, but you know, sometimes a video is very helpful, we know. And we want to encourage you to join the Facebook group, C4A Academy Community, and to ask questions, and maybe we'll make a video about your question too. Okay? All right.
I want to add to that, actually. I'm also going to include some of the questions that I commonly get asked by parents when they first bring their kids in.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just preface all of this by saying that that was me. What I mean is that when I first started with my son, Alex was 25 and a half, and Ginny was encouraging me to look into this, and I kept saying, I don't understand what you're talking about because Alex doesn't even know the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a special education teacher. When I tell you from the bottom of my heart, I had spent 25 years inventing entire educational methodologies to try to teach my son the alphabet, and I thought I had failed utterly. I did not understand the quintessential point, which is the nature of dyspraxia. I had been told he was dyspraxic because he didn't talk with his mouth, okay, but I didn't understand the most important thing, which is, just think about it this way, you can't think and do at the same time. So every time I would say to him, right, point to the letter A, he's thinking about pointing to the A, so he couldn't point to the A, which I took to mean he didn't know the letter A. And that sounds so simple, and yet it was such a revelation to me, because really, nobody does ever truly explain the nature of dyspraxia to us, you know, to we parents when they're receiving their diagnoses. And bearing in mind that we know in literature, in the medical literature, that something like 87% of individuals who are diagnosed with autism, just autism, I'm not even talking about other diagnoses,
Right.
okay, have a motor disorder. That's well established. It's such a high percentage that many experts think it should be part of the diagnostic criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I didn't understand it. Even as much as I understood, which was a lot, I didn't understand that. So when I walked in the first day to start learning this, these questions that I'm going to go through were the same exact questions that I asked.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell everybody who comes in, you think you are skeptical, you have no idea where I was coming from. Because I had done everything I could possibly think of and failed. Okay, so that's the first question.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my child?
It's not my kid.
Right.
I understand that your child can do that, but my child, I'm his mother, I'm her mother. I know that that's not my child.
Right.
Okay, so let me just start off by saying that if your child is diagnosed with autism or related disorders, even quote autism with a comorbid disorder,
Mm-hmm.
like cerebral palsy. Okay, we have students here with Fragile X. We have a variety of diagnoses here. Okay, it is worth trying.
Right. And I would say, look, a lot of people also, when they come in, have a quote diagnosis of intellectual disability. And what I tell parents, at least, is just throw that out the window for right now, okay? Because the tests that they gave them to determine that was likely a motor skill-based test, which then did not properly measure their intelligence. Again, there are people who have intellectual disability. We're not denying that. But unfortunately, most non-speakers get that label because the test's not made and their skill level is not yet acquired to know how to reliably point to things. So let's just say, if you think that that's part of your child's diagnosis, just let that go for now and let's try this.
Try to have some faith, okay? Believe me, I didn't. because I knew what my son's IQ had been measured at. But again, I didn't understand, as Ginny was saying, when you are giving those kinds of tests, you're asking them to do things like stack blocks in a pattern, answer orally, point to something. Every single one of those things is a motor skill. Okay, so when you sit there and you think it's not my child, the likelihood is it probably is your child.
Yeah.
We all believed it wasn't our child.
Right. And Elizabeth, one of the things she says to just about every group is, you type out, I am not special. And she does that because so many times over the years, because Elizabeth's been typing for 21 years now, people were like, oh, isn't Elizabeth just wonderful? And we're like, no, yes she is.
Yes, she is.
Yes she is, but your child is wonderful too. So please, Elizabeth is telling you, she is not special. She is just like all the other non-speakers who are just trying to get their words out by typing them.
That's right. I am not special. I believe the vast majority of non-speakers with autism are capable of learning to type to communicate. So many of my friends have the same story of being underestimated, and now they can type and show the world their intelligence.
Right, so please understand, we have at least 2 students here with comorbid cerebral palsy. One of our students here is paralyzed on his right side, and yet he is successfully learning this skill. Don't give up on your child. Believe. Just take a leap of faith. Okay, that's number 1. Secondly is people walk in saying, just like I did, my child can't read.
My child can read?
They self-educated. They're highly intelligent. They get their eyes on something they taught themselves. When you were reading those little baby books to them, or when they sat on the couch seemingly flipping through something, okay, they were learning to read. Okay, I'm not teaching spelling. They know how to read and spell. I'm teaching a motor skill that we call typing spelling for communication.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also think that as opposed to our generation, given that a lot of people put on closed captions when they watch movies or television, I think they're learning to read even earlier because of the closed captioning.
Actually, interestingly, and that's a great segue into my next thing actually, many of my students would turn on the closed captioning on their iPads. They would turn on YouTube. Now, I don't know how to do that, but they did. And in point of fact, many parents come in and say, not only did he do that, but he was watching these videos in Spanish. And then I would have somebody Spanish speaking come in and talk to them, and they had taught themselves Spanish. So I always keep the closed captioning on my TV in my house, because sometimes that multimodality thing is even easier for me.
Well, it is for most people.
Because remember, right, okay, so our people do, I told you I'm an auditory learner, so people are visual learners. I let it, okay, so trust, your child can read. Which
we're not teaching them how to spell.
Or to read.
Or to read. We're teaching them the motor skill to get to the letters. They know what they want to spell out because they've done the lesson, and now we're just teaching them, you can get your body to that letter.
Right.
The closed captions does help teach us how to read. So does reading with us. We love following patterns, and reading is an obsession for most of the non-speakers I know. Please fill our days with books.
And, okay, which leads me to 2 of the next biggest questions, okay, and these are asked on the C4A Academy Facebook page. Okay, one is, I was looking at this lesson and my child is only 10 and this is way too hard. Okay, no it's not. Move on.
I will say, let me just say though, Judy, that we do have 40 plus lessons on the website. There are some that are for littler guys. Usually they have to do with animals. And there are other ones that I think you'll see that are obviously for ones that are teens and adults. So we're not saying every lesson is right for every level of a child, but we are saying that you should assume that if they're a 10-year-old, they're a highly intelligent 10-year-old, and so that they should be capable of that level work.
The next one is the rote.
My child can type. Why start on 3 stencils?
Now, I've talked about this in other...
R-O-T-E.
I was just going to do that. R-O-T-E. Okay, not W-R-O-T-E. Wrote. Okay, so this just another exchange just happened on the C4A Academy site, and I also got another at the Ask the Expert feature on the C4A Academy. Somebody wrote to me recently. Okay, my child can already type. Okay, my child can text. And I'll say, are they conversational?
Right.
Okay, so just because your child can use an iPad and get to the Taylor Swift video that they want, okay, or can type one of our students, and we're going to be making videos, by the way, with this young man. The mother has volunteered because that rote skill set is so common in this population that people are confused as to, is that actual communication or not? This young man came to us, he's 10, he's highly intelligent. We had a very difficult time teaching him for a long time because every time we would try to work with him, all he would do is spell out the names of anything related to Disney.
That's right. Yep, very common.
Right. So, we're trying to transition him to the 26-letter board, and he's spelling Space Mountain, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, Disney World, go to Fantasyland. Okay, this is not communication though. This is some stuff that he's memorized. So remember the definition, the way I defined rote is doing without thinking.
Right, muscle memory.
Muscle memory,
Yeah.
It's exactly that. Okay, so don't believe that your child cannot gain the ability to converse from a motor point of view conversationally because they're typing already rote, which I call rote garbage, to be honest, because it's not communication.
Well, it's in a different part of the brain.
Probably, right? I mean, obviously I'm not a neurologist, but it does appear to be so. Okay, so that sometimes I actually have to undo bad habits before I can give new good habits, if that makes sense.
Breaking this kind of rote typing should be explained to the typer. You appreciate that they can type certain words, but you are teaching a new skill that requires the 3 stencils.
That's right.
So,
but just because they're typing on the keyboard, these rote Disney things, you do need to start back at the 3 stencils.
correct.
That's something where I know it's painful to hear, but
It is,
you do.
because you have to actually undo that tendency to simply use the keyboard as essentially a way to stim,
Yes.
which is really what it amounts to. By the way, I even have a student who has beautiful handwriting, but cannot write with meaning. Cannot, and I can't even stop him, even physically, hand over hand, from writing just the rote words that he was taught to write. Okay, so we're trying to make an attachment here, basically between the hand and the true expressive language part of the brain. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but from my gut is telling me that we're doing here. We're trying to get out of all of those stimming habits that so many of the guys have developed, okay, and to get them to use their hand, not just to stim, but to actually communicate in normal conversational English with us.
That's right. Now, let me give you the good news, which is that if your non-speaker does have the ability to type quite fluently, they will probably, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they probably will be able to navigate through the stencils more quickly because they probably have some motor control because they've developed that skill. That's my hopeful thing to you, is that you'll be able to move more quickly, but still you have to start at the 3 stencils.
Sometimes that's true, but not even always.
Not always.
No, because again, remember that that's not a volitional thing, that's just rote. So sometimes you can't believe how hard it is for these students to come out of that part of the brain.
Right.
And get into what I call the cognitive brain, the thinking brain.
Yes.
It can actually be really difficult. So in the future you will see videos on this. I think it'll be really helpful, but just, again, leap of faith. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about whether or not your child can type, all the words from Frozen. Okay, so that again is a question that we frequently get asked.
Schools often give non-speakers lists of words to type, so we develop this habit of just wanting to copy words. It takes tremendous determination for us to rely on our own brains and type. What can I expect?
The last one I want to mention in this particular video is one that's one of my all-time favorite stories, and I like to tell anecdotes so you know that this is all true. When I was at my very first session learning to do this, and I always bring my mother with me because my mother is the biggest skeptic on earth and basically hates everyone. And it's good for me.
She doesn't hate everyone. I've met her mother, but she is very much a skeptic, I will say, because look, she's lived through with Judy, through a lot of people promising a lot of things and being great disappointments.
That's actually what I was going to
There
say.
you go. All right.
Why do I bring her? Because, as a mother, of course, I want to believe, and then Ginny and Elizabeth are telling me, and I want to believe it's my son, but of course I don't. Oh, that's your daughter, but my son. Okay. So we're down and learning this, and we're being read a passage, okay, by the person who taught me, on Mary Anning, the world's first paleontologist. And she discovered an ichthyosaurus. Okay. And I am, of course, and my mother, totally believing that my son doesn't even know the alphabet.
Yes.
With every molecule of my being.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the question was asked, in what town was Mary Anning born? My mother loses it, snaps. You gave him a lot of information in that paragraph. I don't remember the answer to that. Why are you asking him something if I don't remember? To which the response was, you don't, he does. And of course he did. So a lot of parents say to me, I don't understand. I don't remember everything you read.
Mm-hmm.
So this is now what I'm telling you now is based on my personal experience. It is not science. I hope someday it is science. Okay, but I tell people that I noticed a pattern in my student population, including my own son, okay, which is body-wide dyspraxia that prevents effective communication with the mouth. Okay, often it can prevent things like my son can't tie his shoes.
Mm-hmm.
My son still struggles. He can use a fork, a spoon is hard, can't use a knife at all. Can't do anything bilaterally. Okay, so he can't swim because he can't move his arms in a coordinated fashion. Things like that. Okay, so body-wide dyspraxia. Number 2 is normal to above normal intelligence. Okay, number 3 is some degree of anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. Sometimes more one than the other. Sometimes this one is higher, that one's higher. Sometimes it's only a little bit of both. Sometimes it's ragingly high levels of both. But every single student here has some degree of those two things. The 4th thing is empathy. The most empathetic people I've ever met in my life, which is interesting because, of course, when your child is diagnosed with autism, that's exactly what you're told they don't have, is the ability to understand how other people think or feel. Exactly the opposite. And the 5th thing, which is coming to the point I'm making here, which is extraordinary memory. Now, if any of you have the opportunity to watch the beautiful movie called Temple Grandin that stars Claire Danes, there's a scene in which Temple Grandin is in, I think it's a French class, and the teacher asks her to read 2 pages of her French textbook. Temple Grandin looks down like this and looks up. The teacher starts to yell at her, I told you to read it, and she starts to recite from the very first word the entire thing. That kind of photographic memory is not unheard of in this population. My son has it, and I have several students who do. But even the ones who don't have pure, absolute photographic memories have extraordinary memory. Okay, and that is one of the ways they self-educated. They read what they could, they heard what they could, and they remembered. So if I'm reading a passage and I'm talking about Mary Anning and the world's first paleontologist, who was born in, by the way, Lyme, Reading, England, I would not presume ever that a student didn't hear me and remember.
Judy, I agree with your general characterization of non-speakers with autism. My typer friends are smart, empathetic, and many suffer with anxiety from sensory overload. I guess I would just sum it up by saying we are worth getting to know. In this episode, we discussed how this is your child. They have a motor disorder, not a cognitive one. How your child can read. We are teaching a motor skill, not how to spell. Your child may be able to type, but they need to move from rote typing to their thinking brain. You can expect a lot from your typer. Everyone is different and they are likely to show you a combination of dyspraxia, intelligence, empathy, anxiety, extraordinary memory, and so much more. Expect to be surprised. Your episode exercise is to join the C4A Academy Community Facebook group, if you haven't already. The link is in the video description below. Introduce yourself and your typer to the group. Ask a question. Offer an opinion or some information. And please come back whenever you have a question or need a boost. Here it is, your moment of zen.
Go ahead. Eyes on it. Look. Look at the board. M. Look at the board. Y. D. R. E. A. My dream. Keep going. No, eyes are here. I. S. T. O. G. O. T. O. C. Look at the board. O, good job. Get your eyes down. Down to the board. L. Stop looking up. No, look at the board. Keep them on the board. L, good job. All the way. And my dream is to go to college. Do you know what you'd like to study in college now? Do you have any ideas? Particular interest? Y. E. Yes. Okay. Just share with us. Go ahead. Look. I. L. O. Careful there, make it make sense. V. I love what? H. I. S. T. O. R. Y. I love history.